Okay, we are live. Let's try and get Sonja back in here. Issues. um, yes, here we go. Yes, we did. Woohoo! All right. So excited to have you on here and to do this.
I found Instagram Live as well, so
Yeah, mine too. So, yes, that was why we're having a few little technical issues, but I think we got it all sorted now. So it's going to go all smoothly now, hopefully.
it's
All right. So, first of all, just say hello to everybody who's joined, and thank you so much for joining us. I think that most people in the Nerja Coffee Roasters community know that at Nerja Coffee Roasters, we do have a huge focus on education. So we have spent a lot of time kind of trying to talk to people about why choosing freshly roasted coffee is important from a health benefit. So that's why I'm so excited to have Sonja on here, because she is an agripreneur and she is a Ayurvedic consultant. And you can tell us all about your qualifications and everything. And yeah, basically, I suppose my thing for today is really to go a little bit deeper into why we should choose more organics. Obviously, Nerja Coffee Roasters is an organically certified coffee specialty coffee brand, and why it was so important for me to go into that. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of go a little bit into what we're going to talk about.
yeah, thank you, Kerry. So basically, I'm an agripreneur, so I grow foods and nutritional supplements and microgreens, but I'm also a Ayurveda consultant, which is a natural medicine, a nutritionist approach, originating in India and a long time ago. So it's practicing medicine with plants, and I'm really passionate about plants and what plants can do to the body, so on the outside and on the inside. And yeah, once you start looking into that further and further, you realize that we poison our plants and then we eat our plants. So I'm very, very passionate about healthy plants for healthy people, and that includes foods as well. So I've studied Ayurvedic medicine in the UK, in England, and got a master's degree in Ayurvedic medicine. I've also spent time in India in 3 different hospitals, and did my practicals there, because we don't have Ayurvedic hospitals here in the West, so you have to travel to India for that. And now I consult people in my practice, online mainly, but also offline. And I spent my time growing nutritional supplements which people can enjoy. And yeah, poisonous plants and organic growing methods are my passion, and poisonous plants are my pet peeve. So you really, really got me at the core of my mission.
Yeah,
And
I
can't
think
wait.
I think for me as well, I think I noticed in my 20s probably a little bit of a decline in food, but I think so much more is talked about with regards to actual climate change, and maybe things like the recycling and fast fashion. And I don't feel like our food and the quality of our food is really being talked about at all, to be totally honest. And I think that obviously when we connected, I was like, oh my God, I'm on the same path as you, because with regards to choosing organic coffee, it's very hard still to get organic coffees. There's not as much choice. But I feel that if we don't start to talk a little bit more about the quality of food and the poison that is in food, as you say, then how can we how, like, we have to create the demand basically. And the more that they see that people don't want all these chemicals and all this poison in their food,
Right.
we can kind of start to move a little bit more in that direction. But yeah, the nutrients are not as in food, and so you think you're making healthy choices, but you really almost have to know where your food's coming from, choosing seasonal, right?
Yes, I always tell my clients, usually people come to me when they have something wrong with them, something wrong with their health. And the first thing they have to do is like eat organic foods. Because when people apply pesticides to, I mean, everybody applies pesticides. It's even a government requirement that you take a course and learn about pesticides when you want to start an agricultural business. I had to take a course about how to use pesticides. I never want to use pesticides. So they
Yeah,
should teach people how not to use pesticides and what can be done.
totally.
This is what I studied. I've studied permaculture and Vedic agriculture, and it is really not
No.
necessary. But the whole system is so upside down
Mm-hmm.
that if you practice agriculture the way it is practiced, you have to use chemicals and pesticides,
Yeah,
but you change the whole system around completely, and then you don't have to. You don't need to use any. For example, in my grow room, I grow microgreens. I don't use any. I use ecological soil, and if I have flies, I put lavender plants among the microgreens, and that works.
I love it. Yeah, yeah.
I could go and buy pesticides. Maybe somebody else would do that, but I would never do that. So there are ways and methods to deal with these things, but you need to have the mindset for it, and that's something that I think needs to change with a lot of agripreneurs as well and farmers as well. That the farmers should resist the
Mm-hmm.
use of it as well.
I feel like a lot of the challenge as well is that, for example, like it took me almost a year to get my BO certificate, and it's very, very costly. And I know of other people who are using more bio-organic ways, but to actually get these certificates are so expensive. And, I feel like why, like you said, the system is a little bit broken, because the fact of the matter should be that you should be penalized for using chemicals instead of actually this kind of mentality of well, it's almost like you're being penalized to not use chemicals because of like having to find or get the certificates and all of that. So
Yeah, I think it's like the big state. I think it's a huge operation because all the agrochemical companies that make the poison, they come, they are also linked with pharmaceutical companies. So they're massive companies and they have the power to lobby, and they have created the system for themselves whereby everybody's in their pocket. The farmers, conventional farmers, they don't know what to do without pesticides. They have unlearned what their grandfathers knew. So they
totally.
pesticides. And there's always a little bit of pesticide left in the food. It's called the maximum residue limit. So that means it's the limit that they find acceptable to be left in the vegetable of what we can eat.
Wow.
So who sets this maximum residue limit? It's not the
Right.
farmer. The farmer cannot know how much pesticide is left in the vegetable.
Yeah.
The supermarket cannot know how much pesticide is in the vegetable. The one who sets it is the manufacturer of these poisons. Nobody has, or I have never read or heard any research about the accumulation of these poisons in a body, in a person, say age over 50. So if you eat conventional food grown with poison, in the end, the poison accumulates in your body. And when you're older, you get lifestyle related diseases. And then
I
some people,
personally don't even think it's like even people being older. I think that if you look at even people in their 20s that are now getting these inflammatory
Oh, yeah,
diseases,
for sure.
you know,
Hmm.
and it's like a case of like all of a sudden we have so many different like people tell me new ones that I've never even heard of.
Hmm.
You know, it's like we're constantly getting all these new inflammatory diseases,
Oh,
but this is a new thing. Like this wasn't around like 50 years ago, or I think commercial farming with pesticides started in the 1950s, right? So I think
after the World War, they didn't know what to do with the poison, so they used it on the fields. Before that, we didn't have it, and there was
mhm.
by this Indian lady. Oh gosh, uh, I'll have to tell you later. I can't
We
on
can
top.
drop it in the comments.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she's also saying that the after the war they needed to know what to do with the chemicals, and they decided to put it on the fields, and there was no regulation at that time. I mean, they even had DDT and things like that, and the regulation is coming slowly.
Yeah.
But me in this course, if I was going to use pesticides, nobody could tell whether I applied them properly or not. I mean, there would be random inspections, but you could go under the radar for quite some time.
Yeah.
And, um, I find that unacceptable to have pesticides in my foods. Totally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think the other thing as well is like I think the thing that people aren't realizing is that these things are all tying in together. So for example, like the climate change issues are also due to how we're growing our food. Like it's this just cycle that's started,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
around. And
That,
like,
yeah.
you
Because
know, if places are crop heavy on one thing because that's what they grow, then the whole like crop is or that farm, that agricultural land is all out of balance
yeah.
because it's not meant to be. It's like if we only ate one food forever, like that soil basically is eating one type, or it's like getting one type of nutrition from the plant because it is all just a cycle. And so we're our planet is so out of balance that,
Mm,
go 100 years back, and farms had many different crops that they used crop rotation, they had animals not just to eat but actually as part of helping the land, like chickens kept the slugs away. And I think I don't know what the solution is, but I see it here in the south of Spain. We're having major drought issues
mm.
because um there's no balance with the trees. We only have maybe mangoes in one area, but we don't have higher trees, and they, it's not keeping the water in the land. The roots aren't going in deeper. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, mentioned a lot of environmental issues, and you're totally right, because that's what I meant when I said like we're looking at the issue completely the wrong way around. The whole system needs to be looked at from an ecological point of view. We need to create the biodiversity again. And what I see when I go around here in Spain is the plowing. The plowing is terrible. It turns the earth upside down. It eradicates the topsoil, because
hmm
the topsoil is that black soil on top of the clay that you need for plants to grow. And this is very nutrient dense. It's a bit like the placenta in the human body. It has all the nutrients for the new plants. So some people compare the soil with the womb, because you need to create the conditions so that the new growth can develop with strong immunity and really, 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 really well. But we eradicate topsoil through plowing, and then obviously there's nothing in it. Then we have to put synthetic fertilizer on it. But the difference between synthetic and normal fertilizer is that when it rains, it washes into the rivers and into the sea. So then we get overgrowth of algae and less oxygen for the fish, and then the fish die. and the natural fertilizer stays in the ground and can supply the plant on demand. So whenever the plant needs to have some food, the natural fertilizer goes like, yeah, here you go, you can have it. But if you have the synthetic, and that means fertilizer which is artificially made in the laboratory, it's not really fertilizer, it's some stuff. It gets washed away very easily. Same with vitamins. Some vitamins are made in the laboratory, you know, in chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, but the body doesn't recognize it. It's not 100% bioavailable. But if you eat the plant, then you have 100% bioavailability. You can make the plant into a supplement. This is something that I do. So you don't have to eat a lot of plants. You can take a little supplement, but it's always grown. So Ayurveda relies on the grown thing and not the artificially made.
Definitely. And going back to what you said there as well about the topsoil, like that's such an interesting part of all of this like balance as well, because you know that's not a new problem. For hundreds of years they've been tilling soil and ruining the soil, and there's been you know, different tribes and stuff that have had to leave their land because of, like Petra is one of those examples. They have to leave the area because the soil gets ruined, and it's releasing so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, whereas if they literally just put the seeds in, and you know, you don't disturb the topsoil so much. But yeah, we have some major issues, and all of these pesticides, you know, the people who are growing coffee, for example, some of the top growers of coffee in the world, you know, they're the people it's making them sick, the people who are working on these farms and stuff like that. So
it must be really a lot, because they could spray they could spray a lot of pesticides on coffee, and you know, wherever they are grown, you could have, well, who controls how much they spray? You know, if the crop is on the line, they may even overspray unless it is checked at the point of import or so. Well, how would they know?
Yeah, well, it's a major problem as well, because when they first started putting pesticides and chemicals into the soil didn't need so much, whereas now, because the soil, like you said, the quality has gotten so bad, now it's needing more and more and more. So the load, and like you said, nobody's monitoring this, nobody's checking how much, like that tomato you're buying, how much chemical residue is left in there, you know. So it's we really have to try, and farmers markets, like we're in an organization now called Eco Guadalhorce, and very strict, and they do analysis on the things. But even on Saturday, like, I had a guy come up to me and we were chatting, and you know, it's going back to human connection as well, and not just you know, seeing like food as something in a plastic bag on a shelf that you pick up. It's having love for food and having pride in what you're putting in your body and putting in your mouth, and so yeah, we have to change the mindset for sure about it not just being something that people need to do to get to survive, but actually like making it something that people are like, I want to have an enjoyable experience. Like that's with my coffee, I do all the tastings because I'm like, see how coffee can taste. Like I don't think people realize that
we lost the ability to taste the food. Everything tastes sort of bland, and it's incredible how organic food can, or ecological food can taste. You know, we have lost the ability to be discerning.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about your microgreens, because I I want to know a little bit more about them, because I think it's really interesting what you're doing with regard. So tell me, actually, first, before you do that, tell me about the course that you just did. I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in order to register in Spain as an or anywhere in Europe as an agripreneur, you have to take a course on pesticide use. So they teach you how to use pesticides. There was no way around it. Even if I didn't want to use them, I would still have to take the course, which I did. And the course was Spanish, and even I managed to pass it even in Spanish. So my Spanish is not super good.
Yeah. It's weird words, right?
I was shocked. Honestly, I was shocked with what they taught in this course. You know, I mean, I would have thought not to use this course is much more appropriate. But I mean, people try and wash their vegetables, you know, and think that therefore the pesticides are not on the vegetables. But there are also systemic herbicides that go into the plant, so you can wash and wash and wash. You still get it, you know. So it's not like if you wash your plants, it will keep you safe. So there are systemic herbicides into the plants, and so I grow microgreens really because the young plant of the microgreen has more nutrient content than the grown plant per weight.
Okay.
Per the actual plant. So a small one has more nutrients than the grown plant. And these, for example, take the broccoli microgreen, 420 phytochemicals, including cancer-fighting chemicals, immune system improvements, anti-inflammatory. So people like supplements, and but what I suggest is take living supplements rather than supplements that are artificially made in chemical factories, because the agrochemicals and the pharmaceuticals, they're all the same companies. They split out in the 80s to look a little bit different, but they have the same roots and people know each other. So they're kind of related because they're both using the same factories and, you know, stuff to make.
That's really interesting. I actually didn't know that. So they have the same origins.
Yeah. It used to be
kind of scary.
because it would look too bad that they make poison and pharmaceuticals at the same time.
Yeah. So what you're kind of saying with regards to, like, so say for example, would a broccoli microgreen have the same amount of iron in it as like broccoli?
Yeah, it usually has more than the grown plant, because everything that the grown plant needs is already in the green. So it doesn't develop over time. It's already there, and then it just spreads out to the plant. So you have all the nutrients already there, and therefore it's more efficient. That's why it's like a supplement, isn't it? So if you want to give the kids vegetables, but you to eat you can't get them to eat loads and loads and loads of vegetables, then you the microgreens, because they are smaller and they have a lot more, and it's more efficient nutrition. And there's a lot of research about microgreen nutrition, and it is really considered the next sort of nutrient dense food, also because they are looking at researchers looking at ways to grow foods without too much water, and they don't need to grow to their full extent, so therefore it's very efficient nutrition. So they're looking at that. They're also looking at weeds, and which to me are medicinal plants, which have the ability to grow in drier climates. But that's just a side note. So this whole topic is very, very interesting at the moment in terms of when we're talking about climate change. So plants that give you a lot of nutrition for very little water use.
Yeah. So what would be, for example, like a serving, like, cause say for example with coffee, like freshly roasted, like organic coffee, you drink like they say like 3 to 4 cups is your ideal amount for maximum health benefits. And what a lot of people don't realize is how much is a cup, right? How much is a serving size? So, for example, one single espresso shot is your one serving size. I think a 200 ml Americano is a one serving size. So, like I'm drinking now, like a cold brew, and probably that's probably two serving sizes that I'm having there. So, with regards to microgreens, like I don't know, I feel like with like if I was having, because I think they're so new, like so I think there is a lot of learning there to understand. Like so, for example, for broccoli, you're kind of like, oh, a cup of broccoli is a serving size. Like, what would be a serving size for microgreens?
Uh, that depends really what other things you like to eat. So you should really eat 5 a day. So you can make your 5 a day more efficient by eating maybe 2 tablespoons of microgreens a day, and or per meal, or adding it to your meal.
Mm-hmm.
Very versatile because you can actually sprinkle it over your meal. You can cook with it if you want. And mine are very flavorful, like you said about the coffee, if it's organically grown, you can taste it. So
Mm-hmm.
I made a taste test and compared it with the competition,
Mm-hmm.
and the competition was completely bitter, and it was hardly any difference between the greens, but mine can really taste the vegetable that it's supposed to be. So if you throw a handful, say, into a pasta dish and you cook with it, you get the broccoli flavor, you get the kale,
So
the
that's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I actually felt like, oh, probably you have to eat them raw, but you're actually saying no, you can cook with them.
yeah.
Okay.
I used pea microgreens to make a pea soup. I threw the broccoli microgreens into pasta, but you can also use them in sauces. You can blitz them into sauces and into lasagna, and you can use them any which way, if you want to increase the power of your food.
Mm-hmm.
Also, people who don't have a lot of time and make sandwiches, just throw a lot of microgreens in, and then you have great nutrition for the day.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Wow. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Teaspoons, really, like if you're saying that's like one serving, the reality of that is like you're saying, if you wanted to focus it more towards children, like that's probably a lot easier to get a child to eat 2 teaspoons of microgreens than it is to get, like, my kids, we're like, I'm a vegan, so my kids eat meat like on occasion, like they'll eat it at a restaurant or things like that, but we only cook vegan in the house, so I don't have any challenges with my kids eating vegetables, but I know that a lot of people really struggle with it, and that the children don't want to. So I think it's a great way to and they're kind of like fun. I feel like you can sort of sell them a little on, like, oh look, they're cute and mini, and
I have people who buy pea microgreens because they are for the children, because they're easy snacks. They can hold them, and they can go like a bit like a celery or something.
So how many microgreens do you actually do then?
Various different types. It depends a little bit on the season. So some grow well in the summer, some need a bit of heat, like the amaranth only grows in the summer. In the winter it's too cold. But I have like mustard, kale. So mustard and cress is an interesting one because it's nice for sandwiches. I have alfalfa, which is perfect for vegan burgers because it gives you a really good crunch, and it has a great taste.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it in wraps like fajitas and burgers. I think a burger without alfalfa is not a proper vegan burger. It just gives it just gives the extra bit of oomph, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Nice.
so yeah, and kale, kohlrabi. I have a selection of greens which have a lot of NAD plus, and I came across it because somebody who does a lot of bodybuilding wanted microgreens that have a metabolism booster. And so we have a box where mustard, broccoli, and rucola and kohlrabi is combined. So this is for bodybuilders.
What?
And then we have a and a box which is for children, which is mild microgreens. They don't have a lot of spice.
Okay.
And then spicy boxes where you have all the mustards, rucolas, and China rolls, which is a radish, for people who like spicy.
So it's so interesting. I love this. Like, I'm learning so much about like microgreens, and it's really fascinating because, like, going back to what you say, like if we like finding solutions, like I'm such a person who's like, okay, how do like, okay, I know I can't like change climate change, I can't change the way the farmers grow, but at the end of the day, like if I just keep pushing, like that's why I push for my organic coffee, like the more that like we try to do, like I obviously am raising two humans, so I'm trying to make sure that they understand, like, and the more that we like spread it, like the more that, you know, eventually we can, it's like small changes, right? You know? So
can what we can do, but it would require a revolution.
Yeah.
Because the methods are there. But the problem is that it's a system change that is required.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think the thing is like, obviously nobody can predict the future and whether there'll be a revolution, but you know, there's a lot of things that are needing to change with regards to like, especially with regards to like health and being like preventative. Like what you said at the very start, you said that so many people come to you because they're sick. Like I personally have always had the mentality that I don't want to get sick. So how do I keep myself so that I'll be well and look after myself? Because I don't want to exist like where I'm not enjoying my life and living my life. So I try to make sure that what I'm putting into my body is like allowing me to live the life that I want to live. And I think that people, like with, you know, medical systems being overwhelmed because of people being sick, I think there is, you know, going to have to be a shift in mentality of how do we get preventative. And obviously the food, the quality of food ties into it so much. So I don't know that there'll be a huge revolution or what it would look like, but I think that change is coming. I think the younger generation are starting to realize that they want to spend their money differently. So with regards to like choosing better options, like I find it really surprising to see, like obviously when I first started my coffee company, like I did have such a focus on like, okay, like better coffee is better for you. But I didn't realize that it was actually the younger people that are really becoming like so receptive to it. So I think that you know, there's hope.
Yeah, hope. I think what people should do is they should really look at whether there are any community gardens in their neighborhood, or somebody who makes food swapping circles, or you know, organize. We have to organize ourselves really, how we get our food. We can't rely on the supermarket, because this, I think the system of food producers and consumers doesn't work. We have to all be producers and consumers. So everybody needs to produce something and then maybe swap or sell it to to others, because if production happens only with a few and they have to supply the food to the masses, they are always inclined to use chemicals, and we'll have to sort of create an alternative system of where food doesn't have to be sprayed, you know, where is ecological. And for that we need the community gardens. Or here in Spain everybody has a finca, but even people who use fincas, I mean, they even, you know, spray. So, and there are so many illegal pesticides on the market, you know. Ideally you need this course that I've done, you get a little, like a card, like a driving license, and that with that you're entitled to buy pesticides. But there are illegal pesticides on the market, so anybody can buy them, and you don't know when you buy something on the market, you know, whether they use it or not. It could be they're using it illegally and they buy illegal stuff.
That's so crazy that you get like a little card that says that you can buy them. It's just insane, isn't it? Where it's like, how did we get to this place, you know? So I think I'm so happy that we sat down to do this chat, because I think that the likes of you and I that are really wanting to see a change, we have to shout. We have to start shouting loud, because I think, like I said earlier on, I just don't feel like there's enough focus put on this. And we all know about climate change, but like, you know, do we all really understand the decline in our soil? Do we all really understand what that food is that we're buying, or where it's coming from? We're so disconnected from it all. So like what you were saying there, if everybody grew something and you were swapping it, you're reconnecting back with where the food is coming from, and it's not just coming from a shelf.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it's not totally possible. I get asked a lot, like, do I grow the coffee? And I'm like, I wish I grew the coffee. Like if I get to that place in my life, I would absolutely love to have an organic coffee farm somewhere. But coffee
does it even grow in Spain?
There are, I think so the correct climate really for coffee is the tropical belt, which is 25 degrees either side of the equator, because it has good water as well as the kind of humidity. There are people that are growing coffee in Spain, but just don't know that the production is there to be able to then sell it to be roasted. Because obviously this is the thing that I tend to fight a little bit as well, is with specialty coffee, like it is seasonal. So like we had an Ethiopian coffee, for example, that had completely different coffee taste and coffee notes last year than it did this year, because the season changed. So but I love that, like, and I'm for that. But obviously there are people who want consistency.
You're talking about a very, very good topic as a consumer. What do you need to know, and what to expect, you know? The thing is, if your plant has a little insect bite, then that is not a damaged plant. That is a certificate of a quality certificate. Want to have the plants that the insect would potentially like to eat as well. And also food is seasonal, so sometimes it's not available. And sometimes it tastes different from year to year, like a wine, you know, can taste different from year to year. So it comes as it grows. It comes as it grows. And as consumers, we don't have the right attitude about these things either, you know. For example, some people, like I did distribute some organic vegetables in London, in England, and I have some stories about that. Consumers bought 5 tomatoes, and it was too expensive for them, but the tomatoes were like really big, so it was like a kilo of tomatoes, you know. So you need to think about the kilo price and not about the individual package. Or they wanted only small carrots and not big carrots. Well, it comes as it grows, you know. So it can be a little bit more complicated in the kitchen. So you can't really say like, oh, I only want to buy small carrots. If the carrots are big, then you just have to chop them up and put them in a container. Or say like the plant is damaged, or even if you find a worm or something, it has to be a certificate of quality rather than my goodness, the plant is damaged. And like
having that mental switch of, okay, there's a little problem with this plant, but actually that's not a bad thing. Like, it's not supposed to be perfect, you know.
No, it's not supposed to be perfect. It comes as because like people, you know, we're not all the same looking, we don't have the same hair color, we don't have the same size. What would have to happen for us all to be the same? We'd have to be genetically modified. We have to be stopped growing, encouraged growing, you know. There are even chemicals that stop the growth of wheat, for example, so that it is unified and they can harvest it more easily.
Wow.
Don't get me
started. The chemical for everything. Does it?
Otherwise we'll be here tomorrow.
You know what, there used to be, because I lived in the States, and there was a company that used to sell imperfect produce, because like certain, I don't feel like it's as much here in Spain, but like, you know, you'd go into supermarkets in the States and, you know, they stack, say, the peppers, like they're all the same size, like you said, and they're all stacked up and they're all perfect. They all look uniform and the same. And the ones that didn't make the cut, like there was nothing wrong with them. They were completely edible. So, you know, like you said, switching that mindset of, well, one carrot's going to be this size and another carrot's going to be that size. And, you know, that one carrot might have got more water, like who knows, you know. So not always looking for this perfect, like, tomato or whatever. I have some tomatoes in my garden and they got picked, and it's really interesting to see like the little imperfections. I just pick them off. I just peel them off, like a lot of the times on the skin or whatever. I just peel it off, and then I just put the rest of it into my salad. And I don't think that, I'm sure it's perfectly edible also. It's just kind of a mentality that I have, that I'm like, oh, I'll just take that, you know, but I'm sure there's really nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of education to be done on the mentality of the consumer as well, you know. You may have a certain coffee available this month, and then next month it may be a different type of coffee, you know.
Exactly. Listen, we should wrap this up, but this has been absolutely amazing. I'm so glad we got through all our little technical issues, and it's been really,
it was fun. I haven't even said half of what I wanted to say.
We'll have to do another maybe we'll have to start picking subjects, like actually like really go in deep on some of the different like things, because I think there's a lot, and I really want to you know, to really push for the education, that so we can all start to change our mindset. So
we can do a weekly update.
So go now that we figured out how to do it, right?
Yes. Now I enjoy it, you know. Now we can so, make the most of it. All right, thank you very much for putting it together.
Sonja, why don't you just shout out where people can find you, so that people can follow and find your microgreens, before we wrap up.
Okay, so my website is Ishavida, ISHA and then Vida. We can also put the links maybe below, so it's a bit easier for people. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, and on LinkedIn, and on Twitter. But if you check out the link, can follow.
Okay,
Kerry, was
fantastic.
Thank you so much.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we got on here today. So we'll see. Till next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.